Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for various purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statutes and otherwise be infringing non-profit, educational, or personal use tips in favor of fair use.
Welcome to the Ear Mob Podcast. I am your host, Chaz Stumbo. Good evening, everybody. Sorry, I know we're about 15, 20 minutes late, but we had some technical difficulties on my end and on my guests' end. As you know, if you saw my post earlier today, we were supposed to be joined by Jeremy Leonard, who is called the Cajun Demonologist. And the reason that we were going to have Jeremy on is we wanted to discuss the dark side of investigating the paranormal. The dark side would be not bumping your head or tripping over something in the dark. The dark side would be what can happen to you mentally and physically from investigating the paranormal. Now, Jeremy, as his job, he's a firefighter. And I reached out to Jeremy earlier today to let him know that I might be a few minutes late due to work. And unfortunately, as I was getting ready to send Jeremy the link to join me, as I was getting my technical stuff handled, Jeremy let me know that while he's at work, he got called on a call, so to speak. He had one of his coworkers hit a deer, so he had to go through the accident report for that and everything, and they were just handling that. So unfortunately, I don't think Jeremy's going to be able to join us tonight. I told him to let me know if he could hop in. I did have another person that I thought was going to join Jeremy and I just to relay a story. That's my friend Kelly Elkins. I've reached out to Kelly and have been unable to touch base with Kelly either, but that's okay because we'll sit here and we'll just kind of talk for a few minutes. And like I said, I'm going to reschedule Jeremy. I was really looking forward to talking to him due to, there's recent stories about, the dark side of the paranormal. And I think some of them have been kind of blown out of proportion in what could relate to a potential object and its effect on somebody that was carrying that object around the country. So I don't know if I would take any stock in that. But that's where Jeremy comes in. If you know of Jeremy, you may recognize him. He was on Ghosts of Morgan City, which was on Travel Channel with Ben Hansen. Ben Hansen was on Paranormal Fact or Faked. He's a big paranormal investigator, kind of a mad scientist type of guy. Used to be in the FBI, I believe. Anyway, Ben Hansen and Jeremy worked together on Ghosts of Morgan City. And then Jeremy was also on the Netflix series 28 Days Haunted. And if you remember, if you ever watched that, it was 6 episodes. And the premise was that Ed and Lorraine Warren felt one of their theories was that you never really got into exactly the full experience of the paranormal of a place. They felt that it would in order to get the full experience and learn to understand exactly what was going on, it took 28 days. Now, I don't know about that. Obviously, I've never been able to be locked down in a place for 28 days, but that was the premise behind the show 28 Days Haunted on Netflix. And Jeremy and one other investigator were locked down in a place. And during this time, it affected Jeremy's health in a negative way. And I don't want to get too far into it. I do recommend that you go watch it. Like I said, it's only 6 episodes. That was kind of what we were going to get into, is how this particular show affected Jeremy's health. And during the filming of this show, Jeremy actually experienced a heart attack. So, yeah, it negatively affected his health. And I think, just the overall stress of being away from your family and being locked down in that type of environment probably had a lot to do with it. Again, Jeremy's going to relay his story and know much more as we get into this, when I can reschedule Jeremy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do something a little bit different here. While I reach out to my friend Kelly again, I am going to, let me see if I can find this and see what we can do here. No, I'm not going to do that. So I am going to attempt, while we're doing this, to reach out to Kelly one more time. And I'm just going to send him a text message here. You can see I got my trusty phone. It's funny. Kelly called me out of the blue today, and I was talking about doing this, and he's like, well, I got a good story for you about this exact thing. And I said, hang tight tonight, because I may need to talk to you. And Kelly said, okay. And unfortunately, I think Kelly's not going to make it either, but that's okay. We can kind of discuss some of these things. This will probably end up being a shorter podcast than normal on this particular topic, but that's okay. Again, when I talk about the dark side of the paranormal, I'm not talking about tripping over something in the dark. I'm not talking about bumping your head. I'm not talking about, being subjected to mold or dust in the air or anything like that. I'm talking about what could potentially happen to you physically as far as your overall health is concerned. One thing, I would recommend, that is, if you're into the paranormal and you do have, you know, health issues, I would, if they're on the extreme side, like say you've got a bad heart, or, you don't handle stress very well, I don't recommend getting into this, because there will be times where you could be put in a stressful situation because you're dealing with something that you don't know exactly what it is. And that puts you in a stressful situation if you're someplace that's not familiar to you, and you start having experiences. That's stressful. I've been there. That's stressful. Or you're on an investigation, and people around you are having experiences and they're stressed out. That tends to make you stressed out at the same time. And if you don't deal with stress well, I don't recommend getting into paranormal investigating. I don't recommend it. If you have a weak heart, I don't recommend it. Obviously, every once in a while, and no, I don't care who you are, something could happen that could startle you, and you don't want that to affect your heart. There are plenty of stories, and not a lot of people will talk about this stuff, but there are plenty of stories where people get into this and they go to investigate someplace, and they end up having a paranormal hitchhiker attach to them or follow them home, and then they start experiencing stuff at home. Now, not a lot of people talk about that because nobody wants to admit that it happened to them. Because when somebody admits that it happens to them, other paranormal investigators are judgmental. And the first thing they're going to think is either, whoa, that's awesome, which it's not, or B, man, you obviously didn't know what you were doing to protect yourself from that. I don't care how good of an investigator you are and how careful you are. It can happen. It can absolutely happen 100%. And, you know, not everybody's equipped to deal with that type of situation. I mean, it is a strange thing to deal with. And, I can't really ever say that, I've had that experience of something following me home. Uh, my wife believes that things have followed us home. We try to protect ourselves and sage ourselves and do a protection prayer before and do a protection prayer after the investigation. And, my stepdad makes a joke because I mentioned years ago when talking to him about it, I'm like, yeah, when you go home, when you get home from an investigation, you got to take all your clothes off in the garage because you don't want to bring those clothes into the house because they're carrying that energy into the house and you don't want that to happen. You want to leave them out in the garage. And that's always a running joke. And so it's funny and I get it, and a lot of people out there going, "Really? Seriously, dude? Take your clothes off in the garage? You don't want to bring them into the house?" No, you don't. You don't want to bring them into the house. And the other thing is you may not necessarily know that you have a hitchhiker or someone that's affecting you, but I know people that have gone on paranormal investigations, even to places where there wasn't necessarily any negative energy that anybody knew of. And then all of a sudden, their life has been affected with, all of a sudden, nothing but bad luck. I mean, it's one of those things, it's like Murphy's Law. You know, if it can happen to this person, it does happen to this person. That has happened to a lot of people, but yet they don't want to talk about it. Everybody in the paranormal wants to sit there and think that they're going to be the next Zach Bagans, or uh, Jason and Grant, Jason Hawes, Grant Wilson. Everybody thinks they're going to be the next ones to do that and be on TV. And I'll tell you, man, I don't really think it's worth. I don't think anybody's going to get that anymore. I think Zach is kind of the last of the. Zach's kind of cornered the market. Okay, hold on one second here. All right. Every once in a while, I have a mic issue. Just gotta hit it. Anyways, so I don't think the paranormal on TV is really. I think it's. I don't want to say it's jumped the shark. I just think that it's kind of run its course for a while. And I don't know what you guys think out there. I see some people. I've got some people watching on Rumble. If you're on Rumble and you're watching, do me a favor, man. Hit that chat, man. Let me know. Even if you're watching on Facebook, hit that chat. If you got anything to say and you agree with me, hit me up on there, man. Interact with the show. Anyways, getting back to it, it doing this could affect your entire life. I mean, I don't care how much you prepare for it and think you've got it under control. It can affect your life. It can absolutely 100% affect your life. So, what do you guys think out there? Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's possible that it can affect your life? I mean, I've heard stories of people doing paranormal investigations and then, it used to be back in the day, the big thing was to provoke because that's what Zach and the boys were doing when they first started, like in 08, 09, that's they go into a place and you want to mess with us, mess with me. I give you permission to mess with me. And I think they've done interviews where they've all talked about, that kind of coming back and biting them in the ass. I know I believe Zach has an issue of being pulled out of bed. I know that I believe Aaron had issues over it. I'm not sure about Nick. I'd love to talk to Nick about it. He'd be a good one to talk about in this particular on this particular topic. The negativity of the paranormal. If you're out there watching and you've got stories about how the investigating the paranormal that has impacted your life in a negative way or your health in a negative way, throw it up there in chat. Let me know. I'll reach out to you. I'll pull you on the podcast right now. Don't be shy. So let's talk about some of the ways that you might be able to prevent the paranormal negatively impacting you. Obviously, there's saying your prayers of protection before going into an investigation. I think that prayers of protection are a good thing. One of my, and it's just me and my skeptical analytical mind when it comes to this stuff. One of my things when it comes into saying a protective prayer, I don't have a problem with it, but I just have this idea in my head that does that potentially negatively affect your ability to interact with anything during the investigation? Like, you're protecting yourself. You're walking in there with this, this white light protecting you, of protection, around you. Does that possibly prevent the spirits from contacting you or interacting with you in any way? And again, like I said, I think the prayer of protection is a good thing, and I would never tell anybody not to do it if that's their thing. But that's what goes through my mind is, does that negatively impact your ability to make contact with the spirits? Another thing, I know a lot of people will like sage themselves before going into an investigation. I know you definitely say the prayer of protection while finishing, while finishing an investigation. And I know that you sage yourself and your equipment and the inside of your car and everything when you're done with the investigation, because apparently that helps to prevent the hitchhikers from going home with you. But does that again negatively impact your ability at any time to make contact with spirits? I want to know your thoughts out there. Again, if you're watching this, you've got that chat, hit that chat up. I've got one person, my buddy Snoop out there, has hit me up on the "What's up, dude?" What's up, Snoop? If you guys aren't familiar with Snoop, that's my boy Snoop Von Poop. He is a ex-influencer. He's launched his own podcast. I think he's got a couple episodes under his belt at this point, or he is getting ready to launch that. I know I'm going to be a guest on that soon. He says that he wants to contact Ozzy now. All right, dude. I will address that directly to you. And I get where you're coming from. But I don't think that would be a good idea to try to do that. The way it was explained to me is, I'll go years back on this. My wife and I used to get readings from a medium, and we used to go like every week. And he says, here's the thing, which is his podcast launches on the 5th of August. So I'll make sure I promote that. I'll do videos and everything to promote his. And bro, you better do the same thing to I can't talk, to promote mine. Anyways, getting back to my story. My wife and I used to go see a medium every week, and I don't remember her name. Unfortunately, it was here in Vegas, but she was awesome. And, she didn't charge for a reading, but you could donate, which was kind of a cool thing. You just donated what you felt comfortable with. Anyways, so years ago, grandfather passed away, and it was like fresh for me, like within a week. And I went to get a reading from her, and I said, can you make contact with my grandfather? And she said, no. She said, because usually, she said, when somebody crosses over into the spirit realm, there's a 2-week period. And during that 2-week period, that spirit is, you cannot contact that spirit because they are in training and learning how to be a spirit on that side and how things work on that side. Now, that struck me in a way because I had heard that before. And this is kind of a roundabout way. But if you're familiar and you're hip to, the whole UFO, ufology, Bob Lazar story, then you're probably going to be familiar with uh, John Lear. Now, John Lear was based out of here in Vegas. His father invented the Learjet and the 8-track tape player, right? Well, John Lear was an airline captain, and he got into UFOs pretty heavily, and he was friends with Bob Lazar, and he was very intertwined in the whole Bob Lazar story. Well, John Lear, throughout his investigating the UFOs and everything like that, he started kind of very ever so lightly dipping his toes into the paranormal. And one of the things he had heard was, and it had to do with the dark side of the moon. And what he had told, and I heard this on the Art Bell program when John Lear was a guest one time, was that when someone dies, their spirit goes to the backside, the dark side of the moon, and there for a couple of weeks, they are trained on how it is to be a spirit and how things work and everything. And I had heard that first from John Lear's story. And then to hear that same story from this medium, it just really struck me because it connected and it almost reinforced that for me. And it's very possible that she could have heard that on the Art Bell program, because I mean it was right around the same time, as John Lear being on Art Bell's program, that he talked about this, and then she mentioned it to me. So, Snoop, I think even if we tried to contact Ozzy, I don't think, we're going to be able to contact Ozzy, nor would I. I think it's almost in bad taste. And if you look hard enough, you're going to see people trying to contact Ozzy right now, especially because he passed away yesterday. So it's still fresh. I'm sure there's people out there doing their spirit box sessions and everything yesterday. I know that when Robin Williams died, there were guys out there doing spirit box sessions trying to contact Robin Williams. To me, I mean, I think it's okay maybe down the road a little bit, but because it's so fresh, I think it's kind of in bad taste. That's me personally. Yeah, and I mean, you're correct, Snoop. He is not fully moved in yet. Maybe moved on is, maybe that's a typo. Um, like I said, I agree. I think he's gone, or maybe he's just kind of floating, kind of back and forth. But I think, he's kind of. I definitely think, obviously, that there's something beyond this physical realm that we're in. I mean, we're obviously made of energy, and I think we've obviously transitioned from one form of energy to another. So I think that he's essentially, moved from this physical form into a form of energy. And it's very possible that he's still hanging around his family to, check on them to make sure they're okay. Like I said, again, I don't really think anybody has 100% answers on what exactly happens when we pass away. I know people have near death experiences where, they have a heart attack, or, in the case of Daniel Brinkley, they get struck by lightning and they're dead for 27 minutes or however long, no brain activity, nothing. And then, they come back and they have these fantastic stories of what they experienced, the panoramic life review. And, now they have, they're more sensitive when they come back, or they share these stories of, if they're on an operating table and the doctors are working on them, they share these stories of, floating above their body, looking down as these doctors are, chest compressions, trying to bring them back, or, whatever. There's all kinds of stories like that. But, I don't think anybody has the 100% answer on what's happened. So let's do this. I am going to, one more time, I'm going to reach out to my friend Kelly and see if he's available. And you know what? I'm going to reach out to his wife and see if she's available. We'll bring her on if she's available. So let me try her and see what happens here. See if either one of them hit me back, and we'll see what happens. We'll bring them on via audio, because I'm not sure if they have a camera, and I don't want to say, "Hey, come on, pick up the phone, video chat," and they're in jammies or something like that. So, there's getting back to how it negatively could impact you. I mean, there's just so many ways for that to happen, and a lot of times you might not even realize that it's happening to you. There's people that, there's theories floating around that investigating the paranormal could actually shorten your life. I do know, a lot of times when I go on an investigation, depending on how long the investigation is, at the end of that investigation, by the time you're done, you're just drained, you're exhausted. And people have a name for that. They call it the paranormal hangover. And I think the theory behind that is, when you're doing an investigation and you're getting activity, obviously spirits need a lot of energy to manifest and communicate with you, and maybe, imprint their voices on your recording equipment via electronic voice phenomena, which is, using the spirit, using energy to uh, leave a voice on your recording, or, make a noise, or, the Holy Grail, which would be an apparition, that requires energy. So therefore, that goes into the theory of, walking around with the EMF meter, and that EMF meter going off. That's the theory behind that, as a spirit is in an energy form, and that's supposed to uh, help you prove that there's an energy there. Okay, so getting back to the negative aspect and the paranormal hangover. If you're on an investigation and you're getting a lot of activity, that obviously the spirit needs energy. So therefore, the theory behind the paranormal hangover is the spirit is using your energy to manifest, and therefore using your energy is draining your energy. That would be why you were so tired after doing an investigation. That's very possible. I don't discount that theory. My theory that kind of goes hand in hand with that is, even when you're on an investigation and you're not getting activity, you're so hyper focused on that investigation that you don't notice how much energy you use when you're focused on listening and seeing and everything going on around you. Of course, you're going to be tired and worn out after the investigation. And like I said, it doesn't matter whether you're getting activity or not. I've been on investigations with no activity whatsoever, and the next day I feel like a bus hit me just because I was so hyper focused on that investigation and just really concentrating on listening and seeing. Good thing I have glasses on, but really concentrating on listening and seeing that uses a lot of energy. So, therefore the paranormal hangover. So, think about that if you're contemplating getting into the paranormal or you're in the paranormal already. Just know that when I talk about, and when others, the very few others that talk about how investigating the paranormal could negatively impact your life, they're 100% correct. It can. And I've seen it. I've heard stories. It's 100% true. And just know that I am going to reschedule Jeremy. He apologizes to everybody for not being able to be here. We will reschedule him. That is not a problem. I do want to ask a favor out of all you guys, and I do this every single time. Let's build this podcast together. This is a labor of love for me. I like doing it. Obviously, I'm kind of on the free plan right now. Let's see. Ooh, Diana. So let's see. You available? Let's see what she says. She just responded to me. So we'll get her on here. Okay. So Kelly is available. So what I'm going to do, this is going to be about as raw dog as possible. I'm going to call Kelly. Oh, okay. Okay, so I am calling Kelly right now, and let's see what happens here. I hope this works. So let's see what happens here. Kelly, my friend. There we go. What's up, fella?
Hello. How you doing?
Good, Kelly. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm all right. Just got home.
Okay, good, man. I'm glad you're home because you are my huckleberry, sir. Unfortunately, Jeremy, who I was going to have on, Jeremy is a firefighter.
Okay.
And Jeremy was at work or is at work and got an emergency call. So Jeremy had to, do his firefighter thing. So he apologizes for not being able to be here, but that's okay. I've got you. And so now I am going to let me do this. I am going to kind of give everybody the background on our relationship as far as how long we've known each other. Because I want to introduce you proper because I love you, brother, and I want to make sure that everybody else during this whole thing loves you as well. And they will.
All right.
I promise.
All right.
All right. So years ago, that we're talking, I'm going to say like 2008, 2009, somewhere in that area, my wife and I had just gotten into the paranormal. And we have a mutual friend, and her name is Maury Moots. And some of you out there who may watch this later might know of Maury. Anyways, Maury's awesome. I don't think she's too much into the paranormal anymore, but Maury's awesome. Still talk to her every once in a while. Having said that, we were with Maury one night looking for some place to investigate. And Maury said, well, I've got some friends I'm going to call. I think they're doing an investigation somewhere out in Boulder City. So she calls you and Diana, and you and Diana, your lovely wife, said, yeah, come on, tag along. This will be fun. So we meet you guys out in Boulder City at this house.
Right.
And we walk into the house, and one of the first things that one of the gentlemen, the son who resided in the house, one of the first things he says to you, Kelly, is, where's your van? Where? And you're like, well, what are you talking about? He's like, Where's your van with all of your equipment in it? Where's all your computer screens, and how are you going to analyze EVPs, and how are you going to watch all the videos while you do the investigation? Because at that time, that was his only base of reference, was whatever he saw on TV.
Right. Yeah.
So, right. So you're just kind of looking at him like, dude, what the hell are you smoking? Right. So I just remember like watching you set up all the equipment, like, and you didn't have a crap ton of equipment, but I'm sitting there going, man, this guy's got a legit team. He's got people there. He's like very organized and very efficient on getting everything set up and all the equipment dialed in and ready to go for whatever could potentially happen during the investigation. So I remember you had somebody set up a video camera, and you actually did a video interview with the guys from the that lived in the house, and it was a father, a son, and their masturbating dog. Right. So that, according to them. So you did the video interview, and they kind of walked us around, and then we did an investigation, and I think we were only there a couple of hours, and I don't remember really getting anything, but
No.
I think there was probably 10 people there, I think,
Right.
Plus the people, that live in the house. So we're doing the investigation, and then at the end of the investigation, I could already tell that you were calling bullshit on this whole thing. Right? I think you were calling bullshit on this whole thing. So
I had already confronted the son, and I told him, your actions are appalling against your father. You should be ashamed of yourself, because he kept throwing his dad in front of the bus.
Right.
Remember that, saying that he was doing satanic worship down in the basement, and then come to find out, the father was like bewildered. He says, "Yeah, he picked up that statue at the swap meet." So he was setting everything up, and just came up with this big, grandiose story. It was a lie. Everything we saw it.
Right. I remember that now. Thanks for reminding me of that. And he was like the father, like the kid. He reminded me, and when I say kid, I don't mean like 16-year-old kid. I mean like maybe 30-something kid, 32-year-old guy living with his father and his father's dog in the house, and he reminded me of Andy Kaufman. He kind of reminded me, if you remember.
I never thought about it until you just now said it.
Right. He reminded me of Andy Kaufman.
But excuse me, that is a big demon. I can't coming, buddy.
You said there. Did you say there's a demon in my house? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Right. So
exactly.
You do this investigation, and you're packing everything up, and I can tell you're annoyed because you had felt that it was like a giant waste of time. And you're getting ready to, I want you to tell the rest of it, because it's so much better coming from you, because it's your story. I want you to tell what happened when everybody was kind of packing up and getting ready to leave.
Oh, you're asking for the money moment. Okay?
Oh, more ways than one.
Well, I was frustrated with this guy already. I mean, he was lying left and right. And people will do this when you go into investigations. Sometimes they just look for attention. Sometimes, they're just lonely and they would like to have some people come over, and there's all kinds of reasons why people would go in to try to tell paranormal tales to bring people in. And a lot of times, there's people who are just genuinely scared, and they want some answers about why they're so scared in their home. And we go in and find out there's no paranormal, and we help them get over whatever fear it is. But this particular case had me angry because he was directing everything at his dad and making his dad look like the villain or like someone who's possessed. And it wasn't the case. He was just trying to come up with a story. And, I have been ordained. I've walked the path that has led me to doing this. And everything from shamanism to the Shaolin and studying the Dharma, going the whole monk route as well. It was fun bringing all that to the table when we did our stuff. So, I'm seeing what's going on. And I think to myself, this kid needs a wake up call, and I'm not the one to really give it to him. So I was frustrated. Yeah, I was walking out. And then his last ditch effort, no, they asked me for a blessing. Will you bless us? Anytime somebody asks me for a blessing, I'm obligated. I have to do it. So I gave him and his father a blessing. And then as I was walking out, I always carried holy water with me, and I carried it in a little pouch on my hip. And as we're going along, he looks at me and he says, well, aren't you going to, bless my dog? And I was walking, and the dog was on the other side of the living room on the couch. And my holy water bottle had a little flip top, so you could squeeze it and squirt it. So I, whipped it out from the side, popped the top, squeezed it, shot a stream across the room. It hit the dog. I looked at him and says, there, the little bastard's been blessed. And we left.
That was the masturbating dog.
He kept telling me the dog's possessed. It's masturbating. No. You're not going to have me buy that one.
Well, I'll tell you who was masturbating in that house. Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman was back there turning it up.
Right. It was like, Andy Kaufman, dude, why don't you go ahead and let the skin grow back before you thrash on that thing again?
No kidding.
Right.
And since then, we've covered a lot of stuff. We've done a lot of different cases. And yeah, there's been a lot of times where people are suffering from paranoia. They see something in the mirror or their window, and they think the whole place is haunted, when it was actually just a leaf pattern lit up a certain way, and it made a image of a face. We've had to do a lot of stuff, but talking about the dangers, we did Armagosa out there at Death Valley a few times before they actually closed it off to anybody investigating it.
God, I miss that place.
And what's that?
I said, God, I miss that place.
It was pretty active, definitely. And so, myself, Diana, and we had a young guy that joined up with us. And he'd been with us for a little while already. But when he started out, he needed permission slips from his mom to be able to be out past curfew time, because I think he was, well, how old was Mike when he started joining us with this? I think he was 16. So, he's a good age. He had some, knowledge. He was listening. He was very loyal to this and everything. Later on became a thing where the kid actually just loved us, and we loved him. He was like another son to me, and I was like a father to him, Diana, a mother. He came to us with stuff. We had great time. And we did a lot of investigations up in Virginia. Excuse me, Virginia City. We've done a lot. We did a lot of places without me trying to itemize it. Pioche, Tonopah, Goldfield. Yeah, he was with us on a lot of investigations. So we go out to Armagosa, and we're doing stuff. And he started provoking in the back hallway. And he was provoking in a way that was making me feel uncomfortable because he was saying, come on. Well, you're saying come on to a dark energy. You're basically saying in enough of a way for a spirit to see it as, I open myself to you. My vessel is yours. There's basically, when you're saying come on, they'll see it that way. And sometimes they accept. Well, this night, that dark man back in that hallway accepted. Now, we finished off the investigation for the night, but there was a point while I was investigating, I walked back down that hallway by myself. Now, the people who were watching over the place, they asked a favor of me. They wanted to do a restoration. So they wanted me to document some of the areas back there that were suffering on the sub-level areas where it was starting to mildew through from the ground being below the level and all that. And I saw a spot, and I saw my buddy Mike go by in the hallway. So I was like, okay. So I stepped out in the hallway, and I called him. He didn't answer. I called him again. Still no answer. And this kid was very dedicated and loyal. He loved us. So I got on the radio, and I called my wife. I was like, hey, where's Mike? get a hold of him and tell him to come back to me. She goes, what are you talking about? He's standing right here with me. I said, well, I just saw him walk by. So his doppelganger just went by. And I was like, okay, that was a little strange. But I'm not the kind of guy who gets walked and freaked out and start getting excited about stuff. So I said, okay, that happened. We concluded the investigation and we went home. The next day I tried to call him and there was no answer. And I tried a few more times throughout the week. Still no answer. And I thought that was a little unusual because usually he'd answer right away or at least call back right away. And he wasn't doing this. So I called his mom and she said, well, he's just been, kind of to himself and he's focusing on this and this. And okay, well, then all of a sudden, like a month go by and I've been trying to get all of them here and there and he's no answer. Okay, well, I started seeing postings on Facebook. He's putting, cash on a table with a gold necklace and making statements about going out on the night and getting with the girls and all this stuff completely out of his character. So I saw that and I got concerned. So I told my wife about it. We looked at it and everything. And Diana's the one who actually came up with it. She looked at me and she goes, I think that dark man walked in on him. And when she said it, I looked at her and I thought about it and I said, he's fitting all the characteristics. His behavior now fits the characteristics of what they were talking about with what they're calling the dark man back there in the hallway. He was supposed to be an immigrant that came through and, started selling drugs and stuff and messing with the prostitutes there. And they got tired of his business and they hung him. So that was the story behind this guy, So now we're talking about prostitution and everything. He's talking about getting out with the girls. He's got all this money on the table and everything. It just seemed to click. I said, you know what? I think you're right. She says, we need to go back there. Now, this is a couple months down the road. And he still hasn't talked to us. And I called his mom again. I said, how's he doing? Oh, he's completely I don't know who he is anymore. And I was concerned and I thought something may have happened. And I told him to call you guys. And he goes, I don't want to talk to them. I hate them. I said, that's what he said. Kind of broke my heart a little bit. But I thought about it. I was like, well, that's not my little Mikey. So I didn't say nothing to his mother. I told Diana, I says, you know what? I think you're onto something. We do need to go back out there. So Diana, myself, and one other guy, we told nobody. We went back out to Armagosa and we were doing some stuff out there and I went ahead and provoked. And I straight up was, my body's open to you. I am a vessel. Come on, come into me. And we continued to do stuff for the night. And Diana passed by me and she asked me something. And I turned around and I snapped at her. And she told me then, she goes, your whole face just changed when you did that. She says, I think you got him. And I said, you know what? I feel something. So I'm going to go outside. So I went outside and, as I had stated previously, I've done a lot of research before I got to this point. And in that, I learned some meditations and some stuff to do. So I did one. And it was a kind of a ground zero exercise where you remove all excess energy and you get back to the core of who you are. And I did this. Well, I went back in, we cleaned up everything, and we go home. Again, we didn't say nothing to nobody. But here's the part where it validated everything. The next morning I wake up and my phone rings. I answer it and it's little Mike and he's crying and he tells me he's sorry. He doesn't know what's been going on, but that he called to tell us that he loved us.
Wow.
Now, you could say what you want about the dangers of the paranormal. And for people listening to this podcast right now, I'll tell you, you can go ahead and say to yourself, this guy's full of crap. And you can walk away and you're safe to do so. But when you really get into this stuff and you do it, you're making a commitment. You're committing yourself to a whole different realm that you have yet to understand. So much stuff can happen. And it's not just on a walk-in level where someone can come in and influence you in your decisions to where you start acting differently than you normally do, like with what did Mike. It can show up in different ways. If you're not a person who stays on top of their health and stuff, that's a weakness there that they can pick on too. They'll come in and shut your health down. They'll shut your heart down. They'll make it to where things are difficult. And why? Because they're drawing off the energy of the person that they're parasiting.
Right.
And that's the whole deal. They're parasiting you, and it's causing physical effects or emotional. It's just, there's so many different ways you can get affected doing this. Unless you're really prepared, unless you're fully self-aware of yourself and know that, wait a minute, I'm acting a little differently here. I may have an attachment and know how to get rid of it. You need to know certain things. You need to know how to drive a car. You got to have a license before you even drive a car. But unfortunately, in this field, there's no certification required. People go out and do this all the time. And sometimes it don't work out. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you can walk away unscathed.
Yeah, I think.
But other times you're going to suffer.
Right. And that's not, and people don't talk about that. I mean, everybody wants to talk about, well, I went to this location and I had this experience and I caught this evidence and this and that and the other thing. Aren't I cool? Okay, it's great that you went to a location and you captured evidence. Okay, you went to that location, you captured evidence, and what happened after that? Did you have stuff go on at home that you don't know how to deal with it? Did you do a residential and stir up shit and then leave the homeowners to deal with it after you're gone? I mean, that's a whole other thing. And you've done way more residentials than I have. That's kind of your thing, is doing residentials. So as far as residentials go, you've dealt with you're basically going there, like you said, like you told me earlier, you're basically going there to help them understand what's going on and help them to not be fearful anymore if there's nothing to be afraid of. Because generally people that aren't into the paranormal, when stuff starts happening, immediately they're scared because they don't know how to process it and don't know how to deal with it. So
it's the basic fear of the unknown. Yeah.
Right. So, they're having these experiences in their house. So they reach out to a friend. Well, who are you going to call? Well, the joke is there. Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters? No, you're going to call Kelly and Diana to come into your residence and find out what's going on and help you to understand what's going on. So you're not living in fear. I mean, obviously, unless it's warranted and there's something really bad and diabolical going on there, generally you're scared because you don't know what you're dealing with. And it doesn't immediately, it's not like somebody knocks on your door and says, hey, dude, I'm going to move into your house and just hang out and you can't get rid of me. And every once in a while, I'm going to make a knock on the wall, or I'm going to move something, or you're going to see me out of the corner of your eye. And there's nothing you can do because I'm not going to leave. Because guess what? This is my house too. Right. So when you and Diana go into a residential, what are your goals at that point?
Well, first thing I want to do when I go into the residential is I want to separate fact from fiction. And I want to evaluate, the overall stability of the people giving the reports, like they're in Boulder City. That's just, like the black and white example that I can give you because it's very blatant, the way he was acting. And, when you go in there and you realize, okay, it's a bullshit situation, you got to ask yourself, what way do we have to help them get through this? Now, Diana and myself, we went on a case, and there was a woman who said she was possessed, and she had a daughter, and we went in there, and it was a thing where she was actually mentally disturbed and was like schizophrenic and thought she was possessed, but she was doing things like when we walked in, one of the things I observed was there was like a kitchen table that was fashioned after a butcher block. So it was that big, thick wood, and it was actually used, as a cutting table and all. I could see that, but she had a big butcher knife stuck into it, straight down. Like she just walked up with it and stuck it straight into the table. And I saw stuff like that and everything, and it concerned me. And so I decided to do what we call a placebo exorcism. And so I told her we were going to pull an exorcism on her. And why? Why would we do something like that? To see if it's a mentally disturbed case. Because if someone's mentally disturbed, they can go ahead and give their own answers, but you got to give them a way out. So we were actually offering a way out. She can experience this exorcism. Lola, get in here. I got my dogs. Hold on. Get in here. Come on. So we allowed for her to have that way out. And we did, an exorcism on her, so to say. And, it was a little bit crazy. And she actually got up and tried to charge me. But you know me, Chaz. That didn't work out for her. I got her back on the bed, so to say. And, finished things off. And then when we got home, we called CPS and kind of reported her for the conditions that we saw. And, later on, she called me, a little upset. She said, "Did you call CPS on me?" I said, "Yes, I did." "Well, why'd you do that?" I says, "Well, because of the fact, can you tell me how these incidents happened for you? You said that you black out." And she goes, "I do." I says, "You blacked out and you came to and that knife stuck in the counter." She goes, "Yeah." I said, "Can you honestly tell me that in those moments of your blackouts that your child is safe?" She thought about it and she said, "No." I says, "Okay, so what's happened now is CPS has stepped in, and now because of that, programs are going to be offered to you. And there's going to be assistance available to you that was not available before. Tell them what you told me and start getting some help." And that's one way that we stepped in and helped with the situation. And, and years later, I contacted her and she was actually grateful.
Right, because you helped
She
her.
was able to get that help.
Yeah.
She needed medication. And they didn't know that until it was brought to their attention that she was having problems. It's what we did. We brought it to their attention, and now she was able to get help. It's just different ways you go in. We went into another house where a Marine father who was deployed a lot, and his wife and son, they were both saying that there was things going on. And, we did an investigation, and we kind of picked up, just it was one voice. I don't even remember what it was, but it was non-malevolent. I could tell, like more of a traveler. So the father asked me, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "Well, come on outside." I says, "Okay, we're going to go back in and you're going to do a blessing on the home." He says, "Me?" I said, "Yeah, you're going to do it." He goes, "Well, I don't know what to do." I said, "Well, I'm going to ordain you right now to give you that power." And I did a blessing on him. I told him, "You are ordained to command your home and to command the energy within it. And I have ordained you to do so." So I empowered him. And he asked, "Why me?" And I says, "Well, look, if I do a blessing on the home, or the Pope comes in and does a blessing on your home, your son and your daughter will always look for me or the Pope. Now they're going to look to you, the man of the house, the guy who's protecting the family. I'm returning your protection status to you." And he looked at me and he goes, "Thank you. I like that." And I says, "Now we're going to go in and we're going to do the blessing, and I'm going to show you how to do it. You're going to do it with me. And then you're going to do it once more after I'm done." And we did. And you could see it. The little boy was looking at his dad like he was a hero. We did our job.
And see, that's
There's different ways you handle situations when you do investigations. There's different answers.
And see, that is those examples of what you're talking about, to me, set you guys apart from a lot of other paranormal teams, because not everybody thinks about doing stuff in that way. It's kind of thinking outside of the box. And like you said, you gave the Father the power. And now when things, if they continue to have activity, they're looking to him instead of looking outside to somebody else. And the Father feels empowered enough to handle the situation.
Well, yeah, I empowered a Marine. What more could you ask for?
Hoorah.
Right on, buddy.
Right.
And so, there's just all kinds of different ways. We walked into one house and the lady thought for sure there was a demonic presence. She had her place more decorated than any Catholic church I've ever been in. There was Bibles, there was crosses, there was everything. Okay, so that tells me I put it in these terms because I lack any other description. She was more like a religious zealot. She was very enthusiastic, and really overboard. And we wrapped it up real easy on that one. We let her know how demons act. They do not like those things. They don't like the crosses. They don't like the books. They would have interacted with them. They would have done things to make her feel like she was repulsed by the items and she would remove them from the home on her own free will.
Right.
And I told her, because this hasn't happened, it tells me one thing. And she was like, well, what is it? I says, your connection and your devotion to Jesus protects you. You cannot be messed with. You are empowered through the love and light of Christ. You need to really understand that. And we talked for a little bit. We prayed. And again, I reconnected her belief system to empower her. And so she was able to tell the energy before we left, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave. It's not your home, it is mine. And she had no further problems when she knew that she can have the power to use that empowerment through Christ to get rid of things out of her home. One more case taken care of.
Yeah.
Our main thing is, can we get the fear out of the home? How do we get fear out of the home? How do we get fear, and how do we get these people to where it doesn't repeat? Because unless they have something different to put in, they only have the same behavioral program to repeat over and over again. So what we do is we come in and add an extra Lego piece to their plan. And that piece is empowerment. That piece is education. That piece is knowing that, there's no real secret knowledge to this. I mean, there is, but not on the level that they need. All they need to know is they have the right to claim their space. And it can be done. And so we use that and we go with it. Now, we haven't ran into a situation yet to where there was a true demonic energy. That is rare. So it's up to us to go in there and rewire their thinking about how to approach their fear of the unknown of these things happening. And once we're able to do that, we don't have to come back. It's not a repeat. And people get to live in peace. That's the main thing. So Diane and I, we've been with Python, the paranormal intervention team of Nevada. We created it, like you said, back in about 2008, or maybe a little sooner than that. And since then, we've done a lot of different locational investigations, but we steered away from that because we figured that, it gets overdone, and spirits, like humans, after a while, they get frustrated with stuff. And they get frustrated with seeing all the investigators come in and ask the same questions. There's somebody here. Can you give us a sign? What is your name? They get tired of hearing it. And I don't blame them. So like you go to cemeteries too. And this happened with you. You and I went to a cemetery And you guys walked in, and something held me back. And I didn't want to go into the cemetery. You remember that night?
Oh yeah, that was Chloride, Arizona, I believe.
And you guys went in there, and I told you that when you came back, I said I had a visit. Because sometimes I could feel the energies come up on me, and I could feel their intent and what they want to communicate. And if I could fall into it, it's times like this. They communicate with me in a way where they send me an emotion or a feeling that says all their words for them. Kind of, it's hard to describe.
Right.
But I was approached, and it was a Marine who had passed away, and he was there in the cemetery. And he taught me that night while you guys were inside. He taught me something very, very important. And that was, he asked the question, why are you here? And why would you try to summon me back to the place where my body rests? I don't want to be here. I don't want to be called back here. This is not a pleasant memory to be put in the ground. That is my body down there. I used to have that body. I don't anymore. You know, it just made him think about being back in the body. And it was a bit of a torment for him. And I understood that. And I said, okay, you know, and I talked to you guys about it when you came out of the cemetery. So, you know, for Diana and myself, we're more orientated towards serving the people. And that's doing the residentials. And that's going in to try to discover what is the source of fear. How can we redirect that fear? How can we empower the people to get over the fear? And if it goes further than that, then yes, we start getting into the cleansings of the homes and to identifying and casting the spirits that are there. And we've only had to do that maybe a couple of times, you know, Armagosa, of course, being one of them where we had to do that. And we've, you know, a couple of others, but, you know, this field, people get into it because the unique gadgets and everything, and they figure if they have a K2, a Mel meter, you know, an EMF meter, a recorder, a ghost box, if they have equipment, they can handle it. There's more to it than what you think. And, you know, over all these years that we've been doing it, we've learned a lot and we've seen a lot. And, you know, to go into doing this for the new people, I would say, you know, research, don't follow the path of other people that you see on TV. If you truly are called to be into doing this, you know, you'll get the answers as you go, kind of like with Diana and myself. But if you're confused, you don't know what to do, and you just repeat the same thing over and over again, and the worst thing you could do is go into a residential. You could do this at, you know, your locational investigations where you go in and investigate and say, okay, thank you. You can lock up now. And you go home and go over all of your recordings and everything, and you have some discoveries and you put it online, you talk to other people about it, and you have a great time. Okay, that's locational.
Right.
But with residential, it's different. Because before you leave, you got to remember, you just came in and stirred up a bunch of shit.
Right.
And their fear levels are high.
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier.
Investigation.
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier.
Okay, so now if you walk out to go home and do all this stuff, you've left them in fear.
Yeah, because
that's
you
not
haven't
the way to do things.
Right, you haven't given them any answers, and you get to go home to your house where there's nothing going on, or if there's something going on, you know what's going on, so you're not worried. You've just left those people there, and you've stirred up the shit, like you mentioned, and those people have no capacity to deal with it whatsoever. You've actually coming in there, and if you leave and don't give them any type of answers or any help on how to deal with it, you're part of the problem. You've made it worse.
So there's been some modifications in the way certain things have been done over the years. And we was with a guy named Don Skaggs, and he he turned us on to a new way of doing stuff. We were out in Rachel, Nevada, back right outside of Area 51, and the little alien store right there, they have trailers in the back, and they rent out the trailers for overnight stays and everything like that. Well, the lady inside informed us that there was stuff going on. I don't know who all was with us on that investigation, but it was really interesting because, you know, we get out there and it's locational, you know what I mean? But still, you know, like Diana, we'd got new shirts for the team. We were really into that back then. You know, we all got to wear the same shirts and, you know, everything. We were still developing, you know. So we go do this investigation in the back, and it's really kind of funny how this worked out because Diana was with the girls. I took all the guys, and we started walking towards a memorial. Well, Diana stayed back with the girls in the trailer, and it was really neat because Diana was talking to the girls about their new shirts. Or a girl. She was talking to a girl. She's right over here correcting me. So she was talking to a girl, and she said to her, I really like these new shirts. They make my boobs look bigger.
Of course.
And you know what's funny is right next to the microphone. Now you can tell if something's off in the distance or if it's midway in a room or if it's right up on the microphone. You don't need to be an audio tech expert to know the difference. This was right up on the microphone. It was a subtle, that's neat. Diana played that EVP for me. And you know what my reaction was? I jumped for joy. I said, God bless. We can appreciate titties in the afterlife. It ain't going to be so bad.
Right.
You know, clear as day, male voice. There was no men around at all. I took them all, and we were down the road.
Right.
There was no guy in there at all. But it was a male voice that said, that's neat. You know, so, and then when Diana was up in Tonopah, she took the recorder off to the side and went up the mountain and where the Big Bill Murphy died with that explosion. And we were investigating there. And it was like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. We were setting up because it was the 100th year anniversary of the accident. And it happened early in the morning. So we were there to be 100 years to the day and to the time.
Right.
We wanted to be there to do the investigation. Well, Diana went up the hill. She had to go potty. Well, she gets up there to go potty. And what was it? I'm asking her, what happened? Oh, so she played back the recorder later and discovered that while she was taking a pee, a man was next to her giggling.
Nice.
You know, so like, you know, we've had different things. And at the same time that she experienced that, though, I was trying to set up a camera and it was like, I don't know, 13 degrees out. My cameras were starting to freeze up. I'm trying to put hot hands around them to warm up the equipment. And I see 3 silhouettes walk by while I was talking to her, like the back of 3 men, just their backs went by.
Right.
And I was looking all over. So a lot of areas can have some activity and stuff like that. And, you know, when you're going into like this residual stuff and everything, it can be fun and interesting to experience it. Because as we know, residual energy is nothing that's intelligent or that can interact with you. So when you catch some of that stuff, it's just kind of fun, you know, to see, okay, this is cool. You actually captured some residual action of what happened back then. You know, it's pretty neat. And we've always enjoyed going out and hitting the different stuff and everything. But for us, I think it's more about the residential. It's really gratifying to be able to walk out and know you returned their home to them.
Right.
They can now go to their sanctuary and experience peace. That means a lot to us.
Well, you know, and I think that's why I know Diana's really into the Dead Files, you know, and with Amy Allen, where, you know, she walks through the home and then she, you know, her partner goes to, and he does a historical deep dive into it. And then as she's doing her big reveal at the end of the episode to the homeowners, he's there to verify what she's talking about when they haven't, at least however, you know, according to how the show works, they haven't talked about it beforehand.
Right.
again, it's a show, so you never know. There's an entertainment value there. I'm not saying it's fake. I'm not saying it's all 100% real because I don't know. But the way
Right.
the show is presented is he does a historical deep dive, she does a home walkthrough, and then she tells the clients what's going on, and he, uh, you know, kind of
Backs it up with the facts along the way.
backs it up with the facts along the way. And I know why Diana likes that show, because it's all residentials. They're not going to, the Overland Hotel or Waverly Hills or wherever. They're going to places where people need help.
Right. That's what we do.
Right. And I like that aspect of it, and I think with the residentials, what's so appealing, one of the other reasons that I would like to do more residentials, and we will in the future, but I think what makes it so appealing to me is it's going to be different every single time. And you don't know what you're dealing with until you're there, and then you've got you and Diana to empower the homeowners, the people that live there. You guys are able to do that part of it, empower them, or go, hey, this is what we experienced. You guys need to take your home back, or you guys are kind of like the Amy Allen in this instance. You're there to tell sorry, you're there to tell the client what they can do to reclaim their house and what they can do to protect themselves. And I like that because, all of you people out there in the paranormal that have watched it on TV, unless you watched Kindred Spirits with Amy and Adam, or you've watched, Dead Files, you guys don't get any of that. Even with Jason Hawes and Grant Wilson on Ghost Hunters, you didn't, they presented their evidence to the client, but
resolution.
But no resolution, and a lot of their stuff wasn't really negative to begin with. I think their show didn't really present a lot of negative stuff. It was more, I think, more of a lot of residual stuff. Right. So, where you've got Zach and the boys, where everything's demonic and everything's evil. Okay, they come in and they come up with this evidence that there's bad stuff going on. And then what?
Yeah. What next? And I always sit there. I was watching the shows. And I was like, "Don't tell me you're leaving." So basically, you told them, "Yep, you're haunted. Have a good day. Here's your evidence. Here's to remind you constantly how much you're haunted," and they leave. I just thought I would actually get mad at times. Like, how could you leave that family in fear? You actually escalated everything. You validated that there's stuff there. Now their fear levels are going to be higher, and you walk out.
Right.
And that always got me. That's why when we do stuff, we do it different, and we've evolved too. We used to take a whole bunch of equipment with us. You've seen it, and you were talking about when you first met us, we had equipment, but over the years we've discovered, you just really don't need all that. I mean, unless you're wanting to really bring all the bells and whistles, you can. It's just more stuff that you have to sort through and say, like with that SLR camera. Those things, I think they suffer from paranoia as well.
Right.
They have the tendencies to want to put patterns together, and next thing you know, you got a stick figure standing next to you. Oh my God, it's a spirit. No, it connected patterns that were irrelevant and really, at random, but it grabbed these little connections and said, okay, here's a person. I can make it out of this. And you're going to perceive it as, okay, there's really someone there when there's not.
Right. And
okay?
I think it's just another piece of equipment to try to capture proof, right? But I think it's
now when it happens to where your REM pod goes off, and then you catch something on your voice box while that SLR, If everything happens together, yes, that's a good sign. You're got a lot of stuff interacting at once. That'll point you in the right direction a little bit. But you can't rely on it. You can't say, "Well, this is positive off of one piece of equipment." They got to work together. You can't see something pop up on the SLR and say, "Oh," and focus on that, because you're being distracted. You got to stay open to everything that's happening all at once, and not let one item distract you.
Right. And like I said, with any piece of equipment, I don't discount it 100% completely. I think sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Even with a audio recorder, you get something that you might think it's an EVP and it's actually not an EVP, but
Right.
so it's really, you could get it either way. It's all there to try to capture something, and sometimes two pieces of gear confirm something.
Right. Well, now when we go to places, Diana's got a K2, and we have a recorder and a camera.
Right.
And that's what we do. And because of it, like I said, we've evolved in a different way. And instead of, we used to have a car with back window done up with Titan, the paranormal. Back then it was Paranormal Investigation Team of Nevada. Now we changed it. Now it's Paranormal Intervention Team of Nevada. We're done investigating. Now we're coming to intervene.
Right.
We've hit that level where, we don't have to really get in and investigate. We can walk in right away and know, is it BS, or do we need to empower the family? We know right away. So we empower the family, and that's the intervention.
Right.
So, and now I'll go ahead and give myself a plug on this one. And now we've developed the Phantom Ride. We're out here in Pahrump, and every Thursday in the morning, 8 o'clock, we gather at the taco shop cafe, and we all meet up, and we ride under the name Phantom Riders. But, all the riders, they don't do investigation.
Right.
It's just Diana and myself. And as we grow as a group and everything, we might find a couple people that might be interested in it, and we'll start training them and teaching them. And we're going to continue to do, our intervention.
Right.
And I just think it's kind of cool, that we started a motorcycle group, and I think Phantom Riders is a cool name, and we're looking forward to getting on our motorcycles, heading out to these places, helping families, have a good time on the locational places. And we're just going to keep going forward. We're still in action. Well, I've had heartburn while I've talked to you. Everybody should be hearing that during the podcast.
I haven't heard anything.
Getting ready to burp here.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm going to burp right on the show here. So,
well, that's all right, dude. I can cut it out, at least of the audio part. I can't cut it out of the live part, but I can cut it out of the audio part. But you know what? We're live, so it doesn't matter either way. So you guys have got that new group that you're doing, and you've been kind enough to include me in it, even though I'm kind of like there by proxy. I'm kind of living through you guys, because with my new gig, I'm unable to be there on Thursday mornings. But I do want to give you much love on the fact that you have changed things up a little bit just because of me. And I want to tell you, you didn't have to do that. And I would figure out how to make something work from time to time. But you have decided that you are also going to do evening meetings every once in a while, which would hopefully allow me to participate. And while I'm here in Vegas, I'm all down for participating with you guys and investigating with you guys and helping out. And, I got a crap ton of equipment, and I'm more than happy to share that with whoever wants to go on investigations, whoever wants to be there. They can carry around an audio recorder if they want. We can get them trained up on that. We can get them trained up on using a video recorder. We can get them trained up on using an EMF meter, SLS. I've got all of that stuff. And, that way I can carry a piece of equipment. You can carry something if you want. Diana can carry whatever she wants if you guys choose to. I've got plenty for everybody.
Yeah, and we're always ready to go out and do stuff. I mean, whether it's vocational, which we're not really big on anymore, because of the reasons I told you. That I call it spiritual molestation. They've been, tormented by all these investigators coming in, and after a while, it's like, Amy Allen. We want to talk about Dead Files. Amy Allen walked through the Armagosa.
Right.
And basically what she came up with is these spirits are done with investigators. They're sick of it.
Right.
And okay, I get it. And Marla respected that. In fact, in her death decree, when Marla Beckett died, who was the owner of Armagosa, she specifically said that she didn't want no more paranormal investigations to go on, and that she wanted that to be respected. And she turned the whole place over to a historical society, which has people working there that really adhere to that. They won't allow for it to happen. And I'm just like, wow, what would it be to catch Marla Beckett in an EVP?
Right.
That would have been awesome. But the opportunity is not there. We respect people's wishes, so we leave them in peace. And it just made me think more and more about it. It's that very case right there with the Armagosa that made me think about, well, I get it. That's maybe why some people go like to all these penitentiaries and asylums and stuff to do investigations, why they may not be coming up with anything. They have in the beginning when these shows were doing it and they were paying big money to these places to let them in. Then they figured, hey, this is a good racket. We could start tours, ghost tours. Now that TAPS has been here or the Ghost Adventurers, they made it popular. Now people are asking, they make money off of it. So they start letting people in. They catch stuff for a little bit, but then the later groups, I've talked to people who've done Alcatraz. I ran my recorder and I didn't find nothing.
Right.
Well, because it's been overdone.
Right.
And now the spirits are like, hey, get the hell out of here. Let me have some peace. It's like when you're sleeping. You're in a nice, comfortable sleep, and someone calls your name and brings you out of sleep. You know how it pissed you off at times? You were having a good sleep? There you go.
Well, it's like if you're sitting on the couch watching TV and your front door bell rings. Now everybody's everybody's got Ring cameras so they can look and go, I'm not answering the door. I don't know who that is. If it's Jehovah's Witness, I'm not answering the door. I don't know. I don't know who that is. I don't want to be bothered. It's the same thing. I kind of, as when it goes for Amargosa, it's the thing that bums me out about the whole deal out there is and it's more of a personal thing for me. I had footage from when I investigated out there a couple of times and I don't have it anymore. And I had an experience out there that as far as I know, I've never experienced anyplace else as real as this was. I mean, and I may have told you before, but I'll give the brief recap back for this podcast. My buddy Rob and I were standing down at the end of the entrance of Spooky Hollow, looking all the way down the hallway. And when you're looking down the hallway, there's rooms on each side of the hallway. It's like a hotel hallway.
Okay, so the small hallway, not the breezeway hallway.
No,
the one to the right.
The one to the right. Yes, the one with the thing running down the middle, which was, if you step through it, it was sewage right underneath, right?
Yeah.
So
the floor was gone.
Right.
Yes, I remember.
So you're looking all the way down, and we're down at the end of the hallway, looking down towards the end where the locked door was, and the boss man's room, the bad guy, his room was clear down on the left-hand side. So Rob and I are last door on the left. So Rob and I are standing there, and it's quiet. It's just Rob and I back there. And I see this dog, and it looked like a German Shepherd. It's so vivid to me. Come out of the boss man's room and just like not even look at us, just walk across the hallway and go into the room on the right side of the hallway.
Yeah.
And I take off running, which you're not supposed to do in that hallway because of the sewage thing underneath the middle, right? So I take off
Right.
running down the hallway, and I get down there, and I look in the boss man's room, nothing. I look in the room across the hallway, nothing. Now, you know from experience, and I'll let everybody else know, there's no way out of Spooky Hollow unless you
Hmm.
come back down the hallway to where Rob and I were standing. There's no way you're getting past us. I'm running down the hallway. I get down there.
Well,
I'm
not
looking.
in that direction, anyways, because all the windows were closed on that side.
Right.
So yeah, it was a sealed room.
Right.
The boss man's room, it did have a window in it as well, but it went into the breezeway.
Right. Right.
Okay,
So I'm looking.
and they were all shut. Yeah.
Yeah. No dog anywhere. Nothing. And I turn around and Rob's walking towards me, and he's like, "You're looking for that dog." I'm like, "Did you see it too?" Oh my God. So both of us saw it, but there was no dog there. And that's
And it's interesting because you told me this before, and I was like, I tried to check things out, and there was just, nobody documents dogs back then. So,
right. And the other thing that I had been told was that when the boss man's spirit was around, because there would be a strong odor of cat urine in his room.
yeah.
Now, I experienced that as well, and you walk down there and you'd go in his room and you would smell that cat urine, and the air would be thick, that overpressured feeling. You kind of, something's there. Plus you're a little, you're a little on edge because, the story is that the boss man, he was capable of pushing people. He was capable of punching people. He just not a nice guy. And,
No.
he, whenever
You know
somebody
what a
would
crazy nut I am, though. I'm a little crazy. You know that, right?
a little.
So they tied me up in a chair and blindfolded me in the boss man's room and left me there.
Nice. You've got nuts bigger than me, my friend.
And while I was there, the room had a neutral plaster, old moldy smell.
Right.
But then as I hear the footsteps dissipating from the people who left me in that predicament, my team,
Right.
it was just a few moments afterwards, overwhelming, burning, ammonia-filled cat piss smell right in my face.
Oh, right. And then,
But that's the only thing I experienced, because when that happened, I mean, my response was not that of fear. I just went, I kind of gave off that laugh.
right.
Then I think it kind of realized that I wasn't easy.
Right.
And that's the only thing that happened to me down there, though. Just a brief little whiff, and that was it.
Yeah. And
Nothing. I didn't feel no temperature change, no touching, no other smell.
Right.
That's the only thing I experienced.
Right. And I had the experience of the cat urine smell down there. And there were like 3 of us in the room, and we were talking about it and trying to make contact with him. And we had recorders going. Unfortunately, I don't know if I have the audio. I'd have to go back, but I remember that smell just being so overwhelming, like almost burning your eyes.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then
Very strong.
15 seconds later, that smell's completely gone.
Completely. Yeah. Like I said, it was brief. For
Right.
me, it was like, one good whiff is what it was. And then my next breath, or through my nose, was still tainted from the first one, but it was clearing right away. So it was gone. So
Right.
it took a moment for me to get it out of my nose, but there was no more behind it. So,
Right. So I would be curious, because they don't allow investigators back into Spooky Hollow anymore, and they haven't for years at this point. I would be real curious to see what would happen if they finally, if they let 4 people back there, right, to investigate. I wonder what it would be like now, because they haven't had anybody back there. I wonder if there would be any activity at all, or activity would be off the hook and crazy because, they've had time to
It's been
rest.
dormant for so long.
Right. So I wonder how that would be. What do you think?
It's a thing where the last real known person to have gone through there, I got to walk through without doing any investigation or anything, and I was not allowed to even go there. I was walked through real quick and was explained that when Amy Allen came through, that afterwards they did a blessing, and there was taped crosses over all the doors, over every window, all this stuff all the way through. I could see where they did it. And the guy was real adamant. He said, yeah, we're not doing it anymore. This place has been blessed and sealed. I said, well, that's good. We were back in the regular area, back up in front.
Right.
We were out of Spooky Hollow.
Right.
But, he was just letting us know everything that, what he knows is that every now and then they'll hear sounds come from back there, but no one's allowed to go back there.
Right.
So they just leave it alone.
Right.
And that's what they're instructed to do. Nobody's allowed to go in Spooky Hollow, employees included.
Wow.
So it's been left untouched now, unless they have people, workers or whatever, that are going to assess. I heard there was some flooding, that the area got damaged or something. I don't know. I haven't been down there to really do any checkup, and I'm so close. I'm really close.
Right.
And here's the little shameless plug. So 8:00 Thursday morning, Pahrump, Nevada. It's on 90 Emory Street is where we have our meetings in the morning. It's all about the motorcycle. At that time, we're talking about that. I keep the paranormal investigation separate from the rest of the group, because some people just want to come and ride. They don't do the paranormal.
Right.
So, okay, I still like my riding. So we ride.
Right.
But at night, the phantom riders take on a different role.
Right.
During the day, we're just bikers. We're out having fun. All the people in my group, they're just bikers having fun. They don't know nothing about the paranormal. But when the sun goes down, we come out.
Right.
Was that a pretty shameless plug? Was that all right?
That's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. You brought up something, and I feel honestly really compelled to do this, and I want you guys to go with me when I go. I want to go to Amargosa, and I want to talk to the people there, and I actually, like, for some reason I feel really strong about this right now. I want to thank them for doing that.
For healing it?
Yeah, even though I'd really like to go back in there, I don't have an ulterior motive to try to butter them up or anything. I just really I want to thank them for it. And me, I'm brutally honest sometimes, and I'll say, "Hey, I would love nothing more than to be able to go back there and investigate again, but I feel really compelled to say thank you for not letting anybody do it, because I understand why, and I understand that you're just trying to let them rest and, let them, live out their."
You know what that tells me about you? You know what that tells me about you?
What's
You're
that?
You're a well-seasoned investigator in this field. When I say investigator, I mean a guy who goes out and tries to, capture what's on the other side. Want proof of that.
Right.
You're well-seasoned in it because now you're understanding the realm even better, to the point where you're no longer selfish, and
Right.
you're no longer saying, I want to go in because I want to capture something.
Right.
No, you're at the point now where you're understanding the spirit realm, and you're like, you know what? That place has been messed with for far too long. It's time to let the spirits rest. And
Right.
you're at that point now. And I respect that. I'm hearing that from you. And it's at a point where Diana Diana and I have been for quite some time.
Right.
That's why now we focus on residential,
Right.
because we're done investigating. That's why we changed from paranormal investigation team in Nevada to the paranormal intervention
Right.
team.
Right.
Now we go into residentials and we intervene so that there's no more fear.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I like going to those places because I like the place. Now, whether I get any evidence or interaction or anything, honestly, it's neither here nor there to me. It's cool if it happens, but I just like the places. Like, for instance,
Yeah.
after 16 years, we finally got in to the Goldfield Hotel. It took 16 years to get in there, and you guys were doing it back in the day when Miss Virginia was still alive. It took us 16 years to get in there. We finally get in there. I have a crazy experience with footsteps, and the footsteps almost to me overshadowed the rest of the night, and I couldn't even remember anything else happening until I watched all the footage and everything. But you know what? Regardless of the activity I had there, I was just happy to be there because I like places like that.
And if you go in with no understand, see, this is one thing I encourage people to do before they go to any location. Dive deep into the history,
right?
Okay? Because then you'll find the legends, and
Right.
then you go to these places and discover, like the Mitzpah, they're in Tonopah.
Right.
I talk to people about this. I'm into the history, and they got the Dempsey Room. Well, that was named after Jack Dempsey,
Right.
champion fighter. Okay, so I think to myself, man, you would not want to walk back in the day into the Mitzpah Hotel, because not only was there Jack Dempsey standing right there being a doorman, but if he couldn't handle the action, the bartender was Wyatt Earp.
Right.
That's just not a place you wanted to go and start any trouble.
Right.
So when you walk into the Mitzpah, you stand in the middle there for just a moment, look to the left, and no, Wyatt Earp was at that bar. And then you look over to the right and you say, Jack Dempsey used to stand right there.
Right.
You're standing in the middle of some fantastic history.
Right.
So for us, with our motorcycle group, Phantom Riders,
right.
when we ride out to locations now, we're doing the history and the legends.
Right.
So they're helping me do my homework. So they're innocently helping me do my homework, and they're safe.
Right.
We try to keep our riders safe from the paranormal, even though their leaders do it. The riders don't.
Right.
They just go on the ride. So I don't have to worry about them. I'm not responsible for their spiritual safety, like as if someone joins me on an investigation.
Right.
Now I'm responsible for their spiritual safety.
Right.
Just like I did with Mike. I went and reclaimed, and did all that. So, it's one of the neat things about out here. It's when you get the history and the legends and then you go do it, it makes it all the more fascinating,
Yes.
Just absolutely fascinating. You can go do the history, the legends, and the paranormal. Bam, you're having a great time, no matter what you do.
That is absolutely correct. So I think that I'm going to start looking for places here in Vegas. I'm going to kind of put it out there again. It's tough for me. I don't have a whole lot of time to do extracurricular things like this, but I think I can find some stuff here that we can potentially do. I'll reach out to some people. I think as far as Amargosa is concerned, they can't really control what you do in the rooms as long as it's not illegal. And I know there are active rooms. So if people want to do any type of investigating there, you can investigate. Like if you rent a room, you can obviously investigate that room. I would suggest not making a bunch of noise
at night.
Right. Right. So right.
And if there is a lingering staff, I'm sure a 20 or 40 will set them up.
Right. There's obviously, you've got the cemetery, which is about a half mile to a mile down the road. We walked it one night and went down there. I don't know how active the cemetery is. I know.
Both Marla Beckett and Thomas Willett, who were active in the Armagosa. They're the ones that ran the Opera House. Thomas
Right.
Willett with Marla Beckett did shows there.
Right.
So there's a strong connection from that cemetery to Armagosa, definitely, no doubt about it.
Right. And I mean, there's other things out there in that area. I'm sure the Opera House and the hotel aren't the only thing. And I mean, you can walk, any place can have activity at any given time. It doesn't matter, you can do an EVP session walking through Kmart and you might capture something. It would be a little harder to determine if it was a real EVP or not, but you could walk through Kmart and capture something. It doesn't matter where you go,
spirits are everywhere.
Right.
Everywhere.
Right. And if you're going to get into this again, just, it's not hard to get into doing this. Just come into it knowing that your chances of getting a TV show are about as good as hitting the lottery. I mean, and if you're coming into it just because you want a TV show, get the fuck out. Honestly, pardon my French, get the fuck out, because it's not going to happen and you're in it for the wrong reasons.
I'll back you on, get the fuck out. I'll back you on.
Right. You're in it for the wrong reasons. I mean, you and Diana have it correct. You want to help people. And, I think because of the positivity that you guys have put out into the universe, I think that those residentials are going to come. And as soon as you get one, I think that they're going to start coming more and more and more, because Pahrump is a smaller town. And I think,
lots of
activity. And because of the land it sits on, and Pahrump is a small town and everybody knows everybody.
We're sitting on top of a water bowl. We're basically sitting on top of an underground lake.
Right. Right. And even here in Vegas, I mean, we're sitting on so much water, that there's going to be activity. So,
well, yeah. There's caverns below us, and just people don't realize that. There's caverns, and stuff. There's areas, we can't get to, but
right. So I know,
and I don't think spirit has a desire for it, but there's active water and movement and kinetic energy.
Right.
That's what we're talking about in these underground water caverns, is the fact that it creates a kinetic energy.
Right.
And then you got your mineral content, your ley lines, and all that stuff that plays in the park with all of this,
Right.
But we did some time ago make a posting about stuff in Pahrump, and we got quite the response. A lot of people saying that they had activity in their homes, but we were just doing it as a general, question. We just put it out there and see what happened. We weren't getting active at the time. We were just asking questions. But now that we're back in Pahrump and we're getting serious about it again, we're going to make a few more postings. We're going to start. We're just getting started with the group. I mean, our group has been in existence, in actuality, probably a little over a week. Okay. And it's a very small motorcycle group right now, very small.
Right.
And we're okay with that, because right now the people that are in our group, there's, maybe one or two that are not investigators.
Right.
So our group's pretty tight right now, but we're welcome to everybody and anybody coming to attend our meetings in the morning. But no, if you come to that meeting, we're not going to discuss the paranormal during the meeting.
Right.
We protect our other riders from that. We don't talk about it. But now, if you want to catch myself in the parking lot afterwards, I'll talk all day about it. But,
right.
During the meeting, I'm just telling anybody who might hear this podcast and say, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be at that restaurant at 8 o'clock in the morning, to be there for that meeting. Just know during the meeting, we do not discuss paranormal topics, but I am the president. After we close the meeting, I usually go outside and you can approach me and talk to me about it. And you can give links or whatever to our Phantom Riders page if you'd like, along with the podcast, so people can go and see what we do post. It's an open page. Phantom Riders of Nevada. It's a Facebook page. And of course, I'm Kelly Elkins, and you can hit me up on my Facebook page. And, any questions that people have, I'll be more than happy to answer. Or if you want to tell me that I sounded like a crackpot on the show, that's great too, because I like to giggle at the idiots.
Well,
So,
you know what? That just means they listened. At least they were kind enough to listen, regardless of their opinion of it. They listened, and that's what we're going for.
And back in the day, you had to actually call in to Art Bell to criticize the show. Now you can just do it on Facebook.
Right.
But we're both out of Pahrump, Art Bell and myself.
Right. And, speaking of Art Bell, that he was such a big part of my life that, I listened every night, through all of his retirements.
Then you've heard me. I was the Desert Shaman.
Okay, I'll have to go back and listen. I listen.
Yeah, I was the Desert Shaman.
Yeah, right now I'm up through right before he retired in 2000. So I've listened to every show that's floating around out there up until then. I'm like April 12th I'm at, and he retired on the 26th of April 2000. So
I'm thinking this is back in 98 and 99, because I was actually up in Montello, Nevada. Right. And I was getting ready for a Sundance, and that's why Art named me that.
Oh, nice.
We talked privately, and then he told me to call during the show, and I did. And he introduced me, and I looked at my buddy and I said, "Hey, that's a cool name, the Desert Shaman," because I was studying with the Lakota tribe at the time.
Right.
So I've been into it for a long time.
Right, and I think
before I met Diana.
Right, and I think part of that, going back that far, is the reason you handle it and how you have your your outlook on it now. I think is a big part of that comes from the spiritual aspect from back in the day. You were taught, hey, this isn't something to take lightly and something to joke around with. You've got to take it seriously, and you've got to help people.
Right. Well, my training actually started, I can actually pinpoint a date now. It was back in 98 is when I actually started really training for eventually coming to do this.
Right.
I was a healer first. I was a massage therapist. I went out and studied with the Lakota tribe for the sun dances and Vision Quest and all the sweat lodges. And it was then that I met the Grand Master of the Shaolin Temple. And I went to the Shaolin, and I studied with the Shaolin for quite a few years. And I've taken all that knowledge from all of that and other people with their religious belief systems. I've listened to them all. And we've talked about topics of spirituality and paranormal and all that. And I've taken all that information and kind of just compressed it together. And, certain things stood out. Everybody has a difference on things, but then I found the similarities between all of them. And I apply that into the investigations. And it takes a little bit to really get into, what that is. It's like a sermon. It would be a sermon for me to start now and try to explain to you those common denominators from all the different belief systems. However, in summary, compressing them together, putting it together for the fear of the people in the home, the answers seem to show up pretty easily, because what it really boils down to is fear of the unknown. Okay, so unknown. All right, so let's get them educated, and then we're going to empower them. No longer will it now be unknown, and they will have the comfort in knowing that they have the ability to deal with it on their own, and that they could be successful doing so.
Right.
So, basically, people who are listening to this program, we're alive. We're generators. And we create energy. Like right now, Chas and I are talking. And I have a lot of love for this guy that I'm talking to right now, this guy Chas. I have a lot of love for him. So while we're talking, we're creating positive and light energy. Okay. And that's going up and out. Somewhere else, there's someone violating someone else on some level, whether it's through lies, deception, physical violations, whatever. And that creates a dark negative energy, and that goes out. And so now you got negative, dark, light and positive energy being created everywhere. And those energies go to use. and we're the creators. So when we walk into a place where there are spirits, spirits cannot generate the energy like we do. They can generate energy, but it's at a very low level. They have to basically parasite to be able to do something.
Right.
So they'll draw off of you. You're the generator. So they'll draw their energy off of you. You're the walking Tesla unit. You see people in these investigations bring these little Tesla units that create electrical energy. They make sparks. It's kind of fun to look at. But the truest generator is the human body. And that is the organic energy that they most seek more than anything else. Those little gadgets, they're fun to look at. And the energy can be used, but the energy that is preferred is the organic energy of human spirit.
Right.
And so when we go out there, be mindful of your energy. Before you go in, I always suggest for people who are not mediums or who are not psychic, your common everyday investigators, I suggest, make sure that HALT is taken care of. Don't be hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Because when you have these things going on and you go into an investigation, you are already creating a stronghold for them to lock onto.
Right.
You are already walking in as a victim. So when you go in, make sure you're not hungry, you're not angry. You got to be at peace with yourself. You got to be calm. You got to be quiet. And that way things will come to you, whether it's the spirits around you or knowledge and how to deal with it. You cannot be feeling lonely, because of that sensation of feeling lonely, you are already isolated, and you're never isolated. If you ever studied any of the Buddhist or the Tao, they talk about the connection of all things. You got to know and believe in yourself that these things are part of you. Everything is. You're not alone. You may be standing alone, but you're connected to everything around you. And as far as tired, make sure you're well rested when you go, because you're going to already feel tired when you leave. You got to get your rest before you go in these places. You got to have your energy up. Your energy is also your defense. So don't go in hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Make sure all those places are covered. Make sure you're at peace. Do not have anxiety going in. Anxiety can create moments where you experience something and you may communicate it as something bigger than what you actually experience. It's human nature. Sometimes we'll embellish a story so that it's more believable. But when you're actually all together and you're solid, you go in this with the right intent, you eliminate that. So that's just like the best pieces of advice I can give to people who are going to do this. That, and also remember that you are a solidified vessel. Only things that can come in are things that you allow or that your ignorance allows because you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
So if you ever feel like you're getting ready to step out of your skill set on any investigation, my best advice is to leave. If you feel like something's a little bit overwhelming, or there might be something there that's beyond what you're really ready to deal with, like, let's say, for example, the dark man back there in the hallways of Blamagosa.
Right.
You'll know when you walk back there. If fear consumes you, then get out, because fear is the strongest energy that they can feed off of.
Right.
You don't need to feed them. Don't feed the animals.
Right. Yeah. Don't feed the animals, because they'll only keep coming back. Right. And
Exactly.
I had talked about all of that, prior to you joining me, which was part of the discussion that I was, talking about when it comes to the negative aspect. And you've got to go in with a positive frame of mind. You've got to be centered. You've got to, like you said, not be hungry, not be tired, because when you go in tired, your defenses aren't up, your shield's not up, and something is, like you said, their parasites are going to take advantage of it, and if you're hungry, they're going to take advantage of that. You've got to be 100% when you go into these situations like that. So,
well, yeah, and the hunger thing, I mean, some people might dismiss that because they're anxious to get to a location. But let us take a little look at that old cliche of hangry. Is it called hangry?
Yeah, hangry.
Yeah, is that when you want to eat and your body's depleting on nutrients, you have more of a tendency to get angry, irritated, because you're hungry.
Right.
don't perceive that as a spirit messing with you. No, you need a hamburger. Eat a hamburger and shut the fuck up.
I need a hamburger right about now. I'm not hangry. I'm hungry, but I'm not hangry.
Right. You know, I know you have the capability, but Chas, all the years that I've been with you, I've really never seen you angry. And I've always enjoyed that about you. Your energy's always been positive. Your curiosity is equal to that of a child, which I find refreshing.
Right.
And you go in when I say the child, I'm talking about the innocence of a child.
Right.
You don't go in with any type of negative energy in anything. You're going in with your eyes wide open to discover.
Right.
And a lot of us, we want to discover. And what is it we want to discover? The one essential truth. Is there existence after we die?
Yeah, I think we all want some
and
reassurance.
that's what drives this.
I think
exactly.
We all want reassurance that the light bulb, we don't just fade to black and that's it. And then, we all want that reassurance. And I think you'll feel the same way as me, that after doing this for years and years and years, you more so than me, honestly, but after doing this for years and years and years, I'm not scared of dying. I'm more scared of not being around the people I love, but I'm not scared of what's going to happen on the other side, because I know that there's something there. There's an existence on the other side. There has to be. Just, I mean, I've experienced it, while investigating it, obviously with, things that have happened, but I'm not scared of it, because I think that, the people, the spirits that have made contact, they generally, I've never really gotten the feeling that they're scared, that there's really anything to be scared of, because they seem to be just going along, doing the day-to-day thing just like us. Just on their day-to-day thing is different, and it's on a different level, but they're just kind of existing just on a different plane, just like we're existing on this one.
Wait. Well, on that, that's like one of the things I'm working on now. How does it really work? There's people who have done certain things in their life, and you think, okay, so they're going to go to hell. But yet, when people have gone out and done investigations, they've captured the energy or the voices of these people who were predators.
Right.
And they're still around, So, there's more questions to be answered. Why are they still around?
Right.
And, the good energies that are there because, the old statement in the Bible, they say that it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven. And that says a lot right there, because what it tells me is once we've left the physical plane, a lot of us choose to hold on to it.
Right.
So we don't move on. And there's some energies that I believe that were predator energies that are scared to move on because they're in fear that they're going to be in judgment. And that's the part where they're going to have to pay the price for the things they did in life. I don't know yet. That's part of what I'm still investigating for.
Right.
I've gotten most of the other answers, but there's more to discover. And we're still, we may have been at this for 100 years, but we're still in our infancy of understanding the afterlife.
Right.
So, until we can figure out a way of getting more definitive answers, more definitive evidence or something, someone documents something of great value that's going to change the mindsets of people who see it, until that day happens, I just think we need to stay vigilant and just keep looking.
Right.
And I think one day one of us out there may just run into that golden moment that will have enough information that will satiate our curiosity into the afterlife.
Right. Right. No, well,
So,
no, I agree with you. And, you know, wrapping this thing up, I know that you guys have started your new group and, you know, there's going to be much success with that. And I know you guys have been in it for all the right reasons for so long. And, you know, that accounts for, you know, the success that is going to come to your group and the fact that we are going to get investigations and you guys are going to treat it the way it needs to be treated. And you guys are going to show other people, you know, how this is supposed to be treated. And, you know, I'll be right there with you to help you any way I can. You know, I've got the cameras and everything to document things and show, you know, I really want to, more so than capture evidence, I really want to document how you guys do things because I think the world needs to see it. And I think other investigators need to take note of how you guys handle things because you will do it for the right reasons. You are doing it for the right reasons. And I think people are going to notice that. And I think, you know, if there are people out there in Pahrump that are experiencing things, you know, you guys are going to be who they need to contact. And I think word's going to get around. And before you know it, you guys are going to be busier than you want to be.
yeah, just too bad we don't get paid for it, right?
Well, yeah. But for
But our
me,
payment comes back in knowledge. And
right,
that's really where it's at. Because every investigation we do, we still learn stuff, you know?
right. And, you know, it's very similar, you know, in the other aspects that I do, you know, people, even when I go, you know, see a band play and I look at the drummer and, you know, I don't care how the drummer plays, their level of technique or whatever, there's always something to be learned from them. And I think, you know, watching other paranormal groups, you know, investigate, and I'll be honest, I'd much rather watch them and, you know, live stream and investigate than watching a video that they've edited and put together after the fact because they can, I'm not saying they manipulate it, but they can, you know, edit it to represent themselves in a certain way. Whereas when you watch,
Classic example, Diana and I on Pawn Stars.
right, right.
When we went on Pawn Stars, they edited so much stuff out of that.
Well, of
And it
course.
made us look bad.
Right. Right. Of course. You know, I'll give you a prime, your example. You're absolutely 100% correct. I watch, and you may want to look these people up. If you ever want to watch how real people investigate the paranormal, and because they're in it for the right reasons. I've got some friends back in Michigan, Jamie and Daniel. They're the Cherry Capital Shadow Seekers, and they go out and you watch them, and they'll have your side splitting. They're having a good time, and sometimes Daniel's goofy and he's having fun, but you know what? He's enjoying it. He's not taking it too seriously. But when you watch it, you know that they're the real deal because it's not taken too seriously. It's real, you know, and they're live on Facebook. They don't really put up any crazy videos on YouTube or any edited anything like that. They're live on Facebook when they do their investigations, and it's real. And you know it's not bullshit because it's live. It's real. They're not acting up to the camera. They're just investigating. They're investigating. They're doing
And I
what they
like that
do.
idea too.
What's
Yeah, I
that?
like that.
Right.
I like that. Yeah.
Right. They just they investigate. And just like doing this podcast, we're doing it live and there's no editing the live video. You know, I'll upload it to YouTube. It's going to be the same exact video that's on Rumble. Good or bad for me, I don't care. It's live and that's what I like. So, you know, when you do investigations, I love watching people do it live. And I definitely love watching like Cherry Capital Shadow Seekers because it's real. and they're not out to get a TV show. They're not out to try to be Daniel's not the next Zach Bagans. He's not trying to do it that way. They're just like, hey, guess what? We're in this cemetery out in the middle of nowhere. I'm standing here. Here's a history of this cemetery, and we're going to reach out. And they get activity. They get their REM pods go off, and they get activity, and they hear sounds in the woods, and it's very cool to watch them do it. And I wish they would do it more, but like anybody else, they have lives.
I get a
It's
little self-conscious though sometimes because like I've had other investigators join up with us and everything, and I remember one guy, and then that's what I think about this when wherever we get ready to roll the camera and stuff. I like I like pointing the camera at what we're looking at. I don't like to have a camera on me. And one guy, he said it to me one day, and it's made me, I guess, a little self-conscious, but he's like, dude, you showing up at a paranormal investigator, it's like taking a biker and Van Helsing and putting them together.
right.
And that's you. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah, dude, you're like a biker Van Helsing, man. He goes, you're a real sweet guy. You're a great guy, nice guy. He goes, but you got this freak in you. He says, he says it's like a mean streak that you keep harbored.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I understand what you're saying, but then like tonight you made me remember blessing the dog from across the room, and I said, yeah, there, the son of a bitch has been blessed.
Right.
And I walked out, and I kind of had to think about it. I was like, I think that's probably what he was talking about.
Right. Right.
I get tired of the bullshit, and I get a little gruff. I guess.
Right. And I think a lot of people have that. I know that I have that because I'm usually pretty mild mannered and pretty easygoing, and I'll joke around with the next person, and I get frustrated too sometimes, and when somebody frustrates me, and I know that I'm just frustrated with the situation, but I'm not mad at the person, I'll snap at the person, but in a jokingly manner, like so over the top that they know I'm joking.
Yeah.
And that's just me going, all right, I realize what this situation is. I'm frustrated with the situation, but I also realize what the situation is. And, I'm kind of taking the gas out of the situation,
I call that compartmentalized decompression.
Right. Right. And then I'll go to
You
that
got to
person.
decompress a little bit at times. Yeah.
Right. And then I'll go to that person later and go, I was just fucking with you, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, dude, totally.
Oh,
Totally.
really?
Totally.
You know how many times you've come up to me after investigations and said, I was just fucking with you? Now I can piece it all. Dude, why didn't you tell me?
Right. Right. But you know what?
Actually, you've never said that to me.
Right. But you know what? If we were next time we investigate together and you come up and you snap at me, it's either going to be you got a parasite on you, somebody stepped in, or you're going to come up to me after and go, I was just fucking with you, right? I'm going to look at you and go, all right, dude, you're just fucking with me.
So one guy, he was asking to join the motorcycle group. He came up to me and he says, so what's up with the paranormal stuff? We talked for a moment. And he says, I might be interested in coming along. And I said, well, if you want, it's up to you. He says, what do I really need to know? I says, the one thing you really, really, really need to know more than anything, and this could be a lifesaver, I want you to listen closely. He said, okay. He kind of really focused on me. I said, if you see me run, you run too. And he said, I will. I definitely will.
He's going to grab you by the arm up by the shoulder.
Oh my God. I have had to deal with so much stuff. Yeah, that guy was something else. I think Kirk was the wrong person out with me, and he hears anything, and he's grabbing my arm and holding on to me and asking me, what is it? I felt like I had Shaggy with me or something. I'm like, where's Scooby-Doo, I don't know.
Right.
I've had to deal with a lot of different people that have tried to come in and investigate with us. And, of course, it brings a lot of crackpots in, too. People who are way out there, and it's been interesting. I mean, one day if you want to do a show about crackpots and freak shows trying to do the paranormal. I can give you some great stories.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
you
But
know,
it's just, oh,
I think, so many years have passed. I mean, like 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010 was kind of when all of the TV shows were on. You had Paranormal State, you had Ghost Adventures, you had Ghost Hunters. And I mean, all of those shows were on at the same time. And everybody and their mother wanted to be a paranormal investigator because they thought what they saw on TV looked fun. And it can be fun and it should be fun, but they thought that that's exactly how it was until so you would get people wanting to investigate. So all of a sudden you would have your 4 or 5 core people, and then you'd be like, oh yeah, come on and investigate with us. We'll see if you fit the group. And you'd have these other people and they'd come out and then you'd never see them again.
yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, because they realize how boring it really can be too.
oh, dude, I remember, and this goes back to Amargosa. I reached out to Rich, who used to run it out there, and I said, Rich, I want to investigate, what's it going to be? And he's like, all right, dude, I'll tell you what, $25 a person. You can bring as many people as you want. $25 a person. Kelly, I shit you not. I had 25 people out there. And it's just because, all right, I've got this date booked. It's $25 a person. And these people are going, wow, it's only $25 a person to investigate Amargosa. I'm in. I had people come all the way from Kingman that night. And these people came in groups, 3 or 4 people. And I did exactly what they didn't want me to do. I split them up. I'm like, all right, you 4 people came together. Guess what? You're not investigating together. I'm going to take you out of your comfort zone. You're going to investigate with people you don't know. And I had 3 groups going, and we rotated every hour and a half. And I ran that investigation with all of those people, and Rich was happy because he got paid, and he gave me full access to wherever I wanted to go. He's like, you've got access to the hospital, you've got access to the opera house, you've got access to Spooky Hollow. Here's the code.
Now, was that Rick or Reggie?
It was Rich. I forget his last name, but he and his wife.
Big guy, blonde hair.
Yeah, he and his wife.
They got ran out of there, right?
Oh yeah, they were doing some shadiness out there.
They were embezzling and all kinds of stuff and everything. Yeah, so
right.
he probably really appreciated it because all that money went straight into his pocket.
Right, but
none of it went to the hotel or to Marla or nothing. He was something else.
Right. And I mean, Marla was up in her house, but she, at that point she was kind of, stuck in the house. So she had no idea. We didn't obviously have access to her house,
No.
But there was the house out back of Spooky Hollow out there. We had access to that. We had access to the opera house. We had access to Spooky Hollow, full run of the place, pretty much. And, it went off pretty good. It wasn't, there was no issues that night, but, it was, I walked away going, you know what? I could actually run something like that and handle it. Everybody was respectful, but I didn't.
You're a very confident person, Chaz. Right. I've always believed it.
But I didn't know 95% of those people. There was like a core group of 4 or 5 of us, and then everybody else I didn't know. And I'll never forget it. That night, one of these people that showed up thinking they were paranormal investigator, they showed up, they paid their $25 and they had Birkenstocks on. And I looked down, I'm like, man, I can't have you wear open-toed shoes back there. I said, it's not, this place is run down. It's not safe for you to wear open-toed. Well, I didn't bring any other shoes. I said, all right, well, I'm going to write up this waiver real quick and you're going to sign it because I'm not responsible if you get some big ass sliver underneath your toenail or you trip and fall and cut your foot, or you get bit by something crawling on the ground because you didn't wear, the proper footwear. I said, I'm not going to send you home because you drove all the way from Kingman. I'm going to let you investigate, but you're signing this piece of paper. You're not holding Amargosa or myself liable in any way, shape, or form. You're investigating at your own risk.
Right.
So that's kind of how you could, differentiate who was serious about it or who was what we call the weekend warrior,
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, my friend, we've been going at this for 2 hours. And I know that Kelly
Diana went to bed, and I can hear her squirming in there, like, when are you going to be done? When are you going to shut up?
Right. Yeah, you need to go take care of Mama because I know she's not feeling so hot.
Yeah, she's not doing good.
Yeah, so go take care of Mama. I've got to call my mama. She just got home. So, my friend, thank you for coming on and spending 2 hours with me. And I know that people who watch this will get something out of it. I would have brought you on camera, but we could have done that, but I figured you were probably in your pajamas or whatever. So
I'm naked.
Oh, fuck, let's go live right now. Dude, we're instead of the witching hour, we're in the wiener hour, bro.
Yeah,
All right, buddy. I love you, dude. And we'll chat tomorrow. And listen to those files I sent you on your phone.
I will. I will. Look forward to it.
That's
Have a good night, bro.
All right, you too, bro. And I'll talk to you soon, man. Take care.
All right.
All right, later. All right, everybody. That was my dear friend and brother in arms, Kelly Elkins. We go back almost 20 years at this point. Kelly's a good dude, and he and his wife are in it for the right reasons. And, they're out there in Pahrump and they've got their new group going. And I wish them nothing but success. And I'm going to help any way I can with that, while I spend time down here in Las Vegas again. I'm going to help them out. We'll get some good video for them, and we'll see what we can do to get their group promoted. And speaking of promotion, I want you guys to do me a favor. I know I'm streaming live on Rumble right now. Those of you that are on Rumble watching this right now, I need you to do me a favor. When you're on Rumble and you're on my page, I'm going to go to my page right now as I'm talking here. Do me a favor, up in the corner, you're going to see that follow thing. Right now on Rumble, I literally have 8 followers, and I'm not sure if those of you who are watching on Rumble right now are following, but do me a favor. If you are not following, click that follow button. That would help me. I want to start promoting this group, and I really haven't had any idea how to do it and how to promote this podcast. So I guess I'm just going to start hitting everything heavily because I created a reel today on Facebook, and it was just kind of promoting tonight's show when, I thought I was going to have Jeremy on, and I got notification right before going live that reel hit 100 views. So I think I need to start doing more of that and promoting this, and see if I can't get some more traction on this podcast. Cause I do love doing it and I need to do it more. And honestly, I'm not doing it to make money or anything like that. I would ultimately love for it to just pay for what it would cost me to actually, have the accounts to where it would help to grow the podcast, both on the audio platform and on the video platform. And honestly, that's probably looking at probably $60 a month would be all I would need to be able to do that. And, ultimately that would help it to grow. But again, if you are watching on Rumble, click that follow button up in the top right hand corner and click that little bell next to it. And what that bell does, it's kind of notifies you when I'm going live or when I put up any type of anything on Rumble. It notifies you that I'm going live. So maybe, you'll drop on over and give me a watch and share this with people. Please, if you're watching right now, which I'm towards the tail end of this, and I see that there are a couple people watching on Rumble, and there's a couple people watching on Facebook. Same thing on Facebook. There is the Ear Mob podcast page on Facebook. You can click the follow there, the subscribe, whatever it is on Facebook. Hell, I don't know. I haven't looked there. Ooh, I got a couple more people watching on Rumble right now. Again, on Rumble, click that follow button and that notification bell next to it. I got my buddy Snoop Von Poop on here now. He's getting ready to launch his podcast on Rumble as well. If you're following me on Rumble, you're watching this on Rumble, do me a favor, follow Snoop on there. I'm going to go on his podcast here in a couple weeks, probably I think a week and a half, maybe, going on his podcast. But Snoop's a good friend of mine. He's got some cool backing going on for his podcast. He's going to be launching pretty big there. He's pretty stacked over on X, which used to be Twitter for those of you who are not up on things. So he's pretty big over there. Give him a follow. Snoop Von Poop over on Twitter or on X. Follow his podcast as well. And help me grow this thing. I know that you have a million choices out there, and I know everybody has a life, and I know everybody's got other things that they're doing, every night, hanging out with family. You have so many choices on what you can do and what you can listen to and what you can watch. And, you don't know how much I appreciate the fact that you're here listening to this or watching this. I can't thank you enough, for sticking with me during this episode and a slight change of plans and, being here, even though I had some equipment malfunctions going into this thing. And unfortunately, Jeremy wasn't able to join me. He will. We are going to reschedule. I've got some episodes in the works coming up. I've got some. Who do I got coming up? Oh, I'm trying to work on a gentleman. He wrote a book years ago about this town in New Jersey called Ong's Hat, and there's a whole story behind it. And his name Joseph Matheny. I reached out to him because I wanted to. I heard him on Art Bell years ago, and he did an episode, but it wasn't Art Bell. It was Coast to Coast AM with Mike Siegel, and Mike Siegel took over for Art Bell during 2000 and early 2001 before Art Bell came back. Well, Mike Siegel interviewed Joseph Matheny about Ong's Hat, and there's a whole story about it. I don't want to get into it now, but I thought the story was real. And I reached out to Joseph about having him come on to talk about it. He's like, you do realize that it's fiction. And I had no idea, but you know what? I don't care because the story is just so freaking cool. And look it up. It's Ong's Hat. It's this crazy cult story, time travels involved. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's such a cool story. And I don't know if he's done any podcasts recently, but I reached out to him and we're gonna nail down a day and time to do it. I've also got Dr. Alan Greenfield coming back on towards the end of the month. And I had him on, and we were to talk about secret societies and secret ciphers written within UFO books and stuff. And we started more talking, we got more into like ufology in general and like the Mothman prophecies and John Keel and Leonard Stringfield. We touched base on a lot of the older original godfathers of ufology and didn't really get into any secret societies. So I reached out to him again about coming on, and he has agreed to come on. So I think we're going to nail that down on the 30th, I think is when we're doing that. And I'm going to nail that down with him, make sure that's definitely happening, and I'll start promoting that. But again, if you're watching on Rumble, hit that follow button, hit that notification bell so you know when I'm going live. And I deeply appreciate the fact that you hung in there during this episode. Um, again, like I said, all I want is for this podcast to pay for itself. I know there's a million of them out there, and you can help me with that by just sharing the podcast and letting your friends know. That'll get us on our way. And then maybe a little down the road, I'll have the little, hey, buy me a cup of coffee thing going on. And again, all I'm asking for on that is the change that you find in your couch, or that change that falls down in between the seats of your car next to the old French fries from Del Taco. There's got to be some quarters and some nickels and maybe a few pennies down there that are stuck together because they were in your cup holder in your car and you spilt your soda and then the pennies got stuck together. Even like a dollar every once in a while would be freaking rad. Like I said, $60 a month will just help me to subscribe to the basic tier plans for this video and the audio. And that will help to drive followers and, help this thing to pay for itself. So, like I said, you know, couch change, car change, you know, at, even I don't care if you donate 50 cents at this point. Any little thing. I know things are tough. I get it. I 100% get it, and I would never, I'm not really one to go, "Oh, I need $3,000." I don't need $3,000. It's literally $60 to get me on the subscription plans rather than the free plans. So, that's neither here nor there. Not guilting anybody. If you can help, you can help. Cool. I don't have that set up yet. I just need to do this more often, and I'm going to do it more often. So, like I said, Snoop's going to have me on soon. I've got Dr. Alan Greenfield coming on. I've got Joseph Matheny coming on. Um, and I'm going to reach out to some more people and make it happen. Try to get some different topics going on. Hell, you might even see me doing this more by myself, which I would love to do it. Ultimately, I would love to do it every day. We'll see what happens. Baby steps, baby steps. So again, please share this. Please share the links if you're watching and you see this later on and go, you know what? I've never been on a podcast before, but I think it would be fun. You know what? It will be fun. Let's talk. Let's make it happen. All right. Let's do this. Let's make it happen. I don't care if you want to come on and talk about how you think the earth is flat. I don't know. I've never been in space. I've never been to the ice wall. I don't know why we don't get to go to Antarctica. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know any of the reasons why people think the earth is flat. I have no idea, but I want to talk to somebody about it. Try to convince me because you know what? I don't know anything about it. Try to convince me. Try to convince me. You know, if you want to come on and you were a rock star in the 70s and you want to tell all your groupie stories, all right, we can have fun with that. You know, if you were a band, if you were in a hair band and want to tell groupie stories, fine, come on, we could talk about that too. I find that, find it funny. If you are a musician and you had a record deal back in the day and you just want to talk about how the recording industry treated you, come on, we'll talk about it. I've got friends that were in bands that I was in from back in the day. I had Anthony Esposito on. Anthony and I were in Lynch Mob together for a short time. You know what? I love that guy to death, man. Anthony's a cool fucker. He's a cool dude, man. Love you, Ant. If you happen to see this, dude, you are the man. I don't, I'll talk to anybody. I just, I want to provide a forum for people to tell stories. If you worked at the test site and saw crazy shit out there, come on, you can come on anonymously. I can take a phone call on this. I was talking to Kelly through my cell phone. I have the ability to talk to people through cell phones to where you guys don't know who they are. I don't even, let's do it. Let's have fun. I'm not saying that your story's real or not. I'm just providing the opportunity for you to tell it. Just as long as you're not slandering anybody, we're good. So, hey guys, you hung in there for 2.5 hours. I don't know what to say. I'm so stoked on that. Again, Rumble, follow, hit that notification bell, share it with your friends. If you see this video, share it, watch
Cynthia
it.
Stumbo,
See,
video.
there she is. She's calling. There's my wife calling. So on that note, I'm going to end this thing, and you guys have a great night, and much love to you. And I'm going to play this outro video, and then we are out of here. You just listened to the Earmod Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow.